Okay, the recording is in progress. And Jack, if I forget to mention that when new people join, if you want to pop in and mention that once in a while, that would be great.
Got it.
Okay, so we're here today to look at hiring tips to meet the staffing challenges in today's environment, pandemic world, the current and post-pandemic, although we're still going to be in the current for a while, it seems. And I've laid this out in 15 tips. They're not in any awesome order or anything like that. They were basically just a stream of consciousness when I was thinking about the topic after Jack introduced it to me and started thinking about how I would speak to this. And one of the things that I want to let everybody know is, as I was thinking about how I would talk about staffing challenges in today's environment, I realized that I can't really talk about just staffing challenges. I have to talk about the employee experience, because it's more of a holistic kind of process and viewpoint that when we hire people, we're inviting them into an environment where other people live, basically this work family, and everybody is experiencing some version through their own perspectives of what that looks and feels like. And I like to see those as a paired experience rather than something that we can separate from one another. So one of the first things that I like to do is, as I mentioned, start with a holistic view of what's going on in the business. So the experience of the business itself and the people in it. So the issues with hiring, by definition, have to overlap with the issues of managing the current employees, because how people react to what they know about the business kind of defines what their experience is going to be. And that's true whether the person is an applicant or an employee. So this 15 points that I put together is going to address tips for hiring and attracting people into small businesses while the pandemic still affects our economic realities. But we're also going to kind of broaden that view in maybe not so much a how to, but kind of what to do and how to expand your thinking around some of these topic areas. What I'm really going to do is ask you to hold up a mirror so you can see yourself and your business as other people see you, regardless of what stakeholder position they play in your business as an applicant, an employee, or really anybody else. So the first rule is that the rules have changed. So the first tip is rules of business have changed, and they might never change back. So we are moving into a future that we don't have a lot of inherent knowledge about. And I'm going to speak to uncertainty specifically in a later slide. But if we try to look at the future the way we have experienced our past, it's like moving into the future walking backwards. And that can be damaging to the business because we might not see things coming. And that's one of the things that's kind of thrown a lot of employers for a loop, is that they really didn't see it coming, that there was going to be people having a hard time finding people to employ. So somebody else is joining now. Okay. And so the important thing in tip 1 is really focus on what's true now and what can be true going forward. We can let our past experiences teach us. Thank you, Jack. I just saw your note. Cool. We can let our past experiences teach us, but we can't let our past experiences be the tour director for our future choices. So let's look at tip number 2. So job descriptions. So job descriptions are the foundation of the employee experience. So that's true for applicants, because the job description should be in place So when an employer is talking to an applicant about the job, there should be a clear understanding of what the expectations of that job are. So when I talk about the job description as the foundation, I mean it's the foundation of the employee experience. It's the foundation of expectations for outputs in the business. It's the foundation for how you manage performance. It's the foundation of your entire employee strategy, if you will. So your job description should be clear and true, including deliverables, not just responsibilities. Knowledge, skills, and abilities. You should be able to understand and discuss with an applicant the knowledge, skills, and abilities for the current job as it exists or as it's planned, and not just some ideal version of the job that you have, in the plasma somewhere. So if something is not functionally required of the job as it's currently existing or planned, then it shouldn't be in the job description. You can always add those things and change this document. It's a living document. And if you're not exactly sure what's going to be true about the job, then do a criteria audit and compare what you think is going to be true or what you believe to be true, thinking about the outputs of the job. What are the contributions that this job is supposed to make to the success of your business? And then pull that back into what does that mean in terms of skills, knowledge, abilities of somebody that you might put in the job. And then look at the experiential evidence. So if you think a job is responsible for contributing to the success of your business through its functions, then you should be able to identify those things and discuss them. It's like, so what functions are part of that contribution? I call it the golden thread. Contributions are like the golden thread between what somebody does in your business and how what they do contributes to the success of the business. And then think of the job description as a tool. It's putting everybody on the same page. As I said, it's a foundation. So you want everybody to understand the job in equal measure. And you can also use the job description as a partner with the resume to develop the best interview conversation that you can have with an applicant these days. And I'm going to speak to that specific topic as well. It's also a partner for performance discussions as well, because people are, again, they want to know what's actually true. They want to know what's expected of them. Job descriptions are an awesome way to do that. And I'm going to speak to the difference between a job description and a job ad in a different slide. So let's move on to this and job ads. Okay, so what is a job ad? The job ad's job is to entice applicants to apply for your position. So that's what you're crafting a job ad for. It's got a different purpose than a job description. So I see it all the time where I'll ask a client for a job description, and what I get is a copy of the last time they posted the job. So they get a job ad. Those are not the same things. So when you're doing a job ad, and this affects how applicants will see your business. So you want to include information about the company and its core values in a job ad where you wouldn't necessarily put those in a job description. So when somebody applies, when somebody goes to LinkedIn, Facebook ads, Indeed ads, ZipRecruiter, wherever they're looking at your business, you want them to start right away to see themselves in there. You want them to find that linkage or not. So you want to put the words in there that are relevant to the ideal applicants, that whatever the words are that they're using in searches, you want to be able to match those in your keywords. That means that you need to know who your ideal applicant is. So very similar to how you may, as a business, identify your ideal consumer or customer of your products or services. And you might have done that with your business plan. You might do that on a regular basis with your SWOT analysis or whatever else you're doing to analyze your business, or your marketing strategy or any of that. You've got some idea of who your ideal customer is. You do the same thing when you're seeking out your ideal applicant. Who are they? And you need to know that for a couple of different reasons that are going to pop up in later later slides. So tip number 4 is understand where the power is. We have been living in a world where the power has been with the corporations, the big corporations, all of the employers. People are looking for jobs and they're expecting to apply for a job, and then if they get offered a job, that's awesome, and they take the job because they need a job, and all the power has rested with the employer side of the table. That's gone, and that's one of the major factors that we see in the change that's happened in the world with the pandemic. Prospective employees have more power than ever, as far as I'm concerned. Even in the heyday of unions, the employees didn't have the kind of power they have today. So this is a choice. The job that you're throwing out there is as much a choice for that prospective employee as it is for you. They do want the job. There are people who want to work. I hear the complaint all the time from employers that, well, there aren't enough people looking for work. Well, there actually are. There's a lot of people looking for work, but we are experiencing serious shortages in some industries, in food service, in the trades, in pockets of industries all over the world. We're experiencing shortages. But some of the, so that's a truism. That's just what it is. But there are also still a lot of people looking for work, but they want to find work based on their needs. They want to choose the job that they have based on their needs. A lot of people learned during the pandemic that they couldn't control what happens to their jobs. So instead, now they're looking at where I can control, what choices do I have, and they want to choose based on their needs. So it's really important as you're attracting, enticing, and interviewing and hiring new employees, that you're willing to share your own expectations from the perspective of the business and ask deliberately and explicitly what your applicants' needs are during the screening and through the interview process. Ask them straight out, what's important to you in terms of whether or not what's important to you about this job? If you're offered the job, what's going to be the most important thing that you need to make you happy? If somebody expresses an interest, you can ask them straight up. It's like, what is it about this company that interests you? What caused you to apply? And what would be important to you as an employee? We don't typically ask those kinds of questions as a primary topic in an interview. That's changed. So now we need to know, because the power has shifted and we need to equalize that. We need to share the experience of the hiring process with the applicant. So not just with the other stakeholders. That's a fundamental shift in what we've believed to be true. So that's, from an HR perspective, especially more of a non-traditional HR person like I am, this is an exciting time. It's just unfortunate that we had to get here through the process of the pandemic. So then another topic, I have this as tip number 5, but it really is probably an umbrella tip because it comes up in other slides as well. Communication is key. And as the employer, as the person who's trying to staff your business, communicate well and communicate often. Never leave anybody hanging for information, and be in contact with people every step of the way. One of the biggest complaints that I've had from prospective employees in the process of job searching is that they don't get communicated with. They might get a robo call or robo email that says they've applied for the job, acknowledging that they've applied, and then they might never hear again. They don't hear if they've not been selected for an interview. They don't hear if they weren't selected for the job. And I've talked to HR people in the US, but also in different parts of the world, to ask them why people don't hear. And what I get is, well, we don't have time for that. As a small business owner, you can't afford not to have time for that. So one way or another, you need to be in contact with your applicants every step of the way. And one of the ways you do that is don't put unqualified people in your interview process. So I've got a lot of small business owners that will interview everybody that applies. And then that means that you've got more work to do. So just make sure you're interviewing people that are qualified. If you're not sure how to look at that, then you might need to hire somebody to help, and I'll speak to that in another slide also. And then as you're going through, communication is really about conversation, because conversation is a two-way street, and you're looking to attract applicants into your business who are going to contribute to your success, and they're going to expect you to contribute to their success. And that means that you need to be diligent in conversing with them, not just moving information back and forth, but being willing to ask open-ended questions, ask questions you don't assume any answers to, dig in to the resume and the application if you have them during the screening and in the interview process. It's okay to use that as a template, if you will, for that. And you'll learn a lot. And then asking open-ended questions. So instead of asking yes/no questions is what I mean there. So this is really about not wasting time. And this will come up a couple of times in other slides as well. You don't want to waste anybody's time. You certainly don't want to waste your own time, but you don't want to waste the time of the applicant if they're not going to, if there's little chance that they're going to be the selected candidate. They're trying to find a job. Don't waste their time. So, and one of the ways a lot of employers waste time is when they don't talk about the salary up front. And this has been an issue forever, but it's even more important now because people are choosing, people are looking, they have specific criteria, and they're not afraid to identify that specific criteria. So be transparent about the salary and benefits that you're offering. Put it in the job ad. I'm amazed how many job ads are out there that don't identify the salary. We can't. There's just no relevant reasons, or very few anyway, reasons to hide that information, especially now that we have equal pay laws that are going to be challenged anyway, and you can't legally keep people from talking about their salary once they become employees. So why not be transparent about it? When people ask you what the salary is for the position, it means nothing more than they want to know what the salary is. It doesn't have to be imbued with a whole bunch of other assumptions or judgments. If somebody asks about the salary, they just want to know what the salary is. There's no reason not to tell them. And I think it should be upfront, because do you really want people applying for jobs when the salary is going to disqualify them for whatever reason? They want more, or they need to pay their bills, so so salary and benefits are important. So keep in mind when it's like information. You're trying to get information about this person, and you want as much information as you possibly can in order to make the best decision you possibly can. Well, the applicant is in exactly the same situation. They have every right to qualify or disqualify you based on compensation and benefits. They're trying to collect information. They're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. So when you think about everything you need to know, they've got a list of everything they need to know. Makes the conversation even more important to ask straight up, what do you need to know about us to consider us as your next employer? That's a perfectly valid question, because once again, nobody wants to waste anybody else's time or their own. So when we think about the applicant search, so we're getting ready to go out and look for applicants. In today's world, we need to be creative. And that means being ready to invest in the process, both personally and monetarily. Invest because when you post the jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn and Facebook and ZipRecruiter, and I could name a whole bunch of other places, Craigslist even, it's going to cost you money. Like they say that it's a free ad, but like on LinkedIn, there's only one free ad and then you have to boost, and they're actually kind of expensive. Indeed, free ad, and you can keep it free, but you're going to get many fewer. I have no idea how their algorithm works, but you're going to get many fewer people applying. Like your ad is not going to be fed as much if you don't boost. Plus, if you use a free ad on Indeed, you can't use any of their other tools. Like you can't search to try to find, you can't search the applicant database. The Indeed will feed you people that look like they might be qualified, but only if you boost. You don't have to spend a lot of money. It doesn't have to be super expensive. Same thing is true on Facebook, wherever you might want to be, but there's likely going to be a budget for your staffing process. So recognizing what that, doing a little homework and recognizing what that is can help you not be anxious about it later on. So getting creative with the applicant search. Some of the ideas, this is not at all inclusive. Get creative means look at whatever interesting ways might work for you. Consider, so here's some ideas. Again, it's not going to work for everybody, but temp to perm hires, working with a contract house or a staffing agency, where they deal with all of the attraction and setting up interviews and doing all that stuff. And then you hire them as a temporary employee initially, specifically on a temp to perm basis, kind of like a trial basis. That's a possibility, and that saves people. It's a cost. There's a fee. If you're large enough, you might want to look at professional employer organizations. PEO organizations do all the HR transactional things for you, everything. And in fact, in many cases, the PEO organization becomes, that was redundant, but the PEO becomes the employer for your employees. You then become a co-employer. So from a compliance perspective. So then they're handling all of the HR transactions. You're not dealing with any of it. Obviously, there's fees associated with that, but for some businesses, it can make sense. Employee referrals. So the cheapest way to hire employees is by using your own community and your own network for you as referrals. So if you have an employee base already, or you belong to networking groups, or you belong to a chamber, you belong to a community, you've got neighbors, your friends, your family, use it, referrals from all of those people, but especially the employees. If you're hiring people, your employees should know what you're hiring and see what you can get from friends and family and employee referrals. The reason why this is a good way to look for employees is because we've proven over the last few decades that employees tend to be more committed to the business and happier, and they stay longer if they have friends at work. So using employee referrals can actually be good for your business. You can also choose to reward people for bringing in new employees, for bringing in quality applicants who stay for a designated period, hiring bonuses for new hires paid after a period of employment. You can post positions on multiple job boards. This can be complicated because you have to keep track of everybody, and you have to watch the budgets and all of the stuff that happens within that, but you can post on multiple job boards. It's important to know who you're looking for and where they are looking, where your ideal applicant is looking. Or you can hire a recruiter or consultant to help you with this, again, adding to the budget. So you can also, one way that's actually getting more and more popular is screening applicants without actually talking to them. So that's a way to save time, is using questionnaires or video inquiries or automatic phone calls. So you're not doing it live, and the benefit of that to the applicant is they have time to gather their thoughts and then record their responses with even possibly a script, which takes out some of the nervousness and gives them a little more time to prepare. So there's a positive on both sides of that one. So we look at attraction and we've talked about applicants mostly, and I said at the beginning that this is a holistic system that you need to think about how you're treating your employees, because your applicant is going to assimilate into your employee culture regardless of what that is. So it doesn't matter what you believe to be true about that applicant. If you put them into a culture, they're going to assimilate in some way into the culture, or they're going to drop off the culture. So it's really important for you to know what they're coming into and what's true about your own experience managing your staff, what's true about their experience as employees, what I call very simply the employee experience. So take a critical look as part of your staffing strategy. Take a critical look at how you treat employees, as contributors to your success. This whole process is visible to applicants during, especially if you engage, if you give applicants a tour, if you let them talk to current employees. So what do you know about how your employees feel working in your business, and how do you know that? So you want to look at what you know, but then you want to apply an experiential audit to it. How do I know? Kind of question. And so when you're doing an employee treatment audit, or what I call an employee experience audit, and this isn't inclusive, but these are some of the most common factors that I would use when I'm helping someone do this, is look at the compensation and benefit strategies. Make sure that you're competitive with that. There are ways to do compensation or the benefit strategies rather, that are not as expensive as people think. It's really not even all that expensive to offer group health. There are ways to do that with less cost than most people assume. So it's always a good idea to look. What's your paid time off strategy? What are the compliance factors that you've had issues with in the past, and do those issues still exist? Are you certain that you're in compliance with federal and state law around overtime, around paid, around time off, paid or unpaid, around the labor laws? If you're in multiple states, are you certain that you're in compliance with the labor laws of all those states? What do you know about your management skills? If you've got a management team, what do you know about the perception from the employee of the management skills, and what do you know about the contribution of those skills to your business? Do you do engagement efforts? And if you do, are they successful? Do you have a base of trust in your business? How do you measure that? It's not easy to measure it, but sometimes I've actually gone into businesses just to talk about trust, to find out if it exists. So, but it shouldn't be that, you shouldn't have to hire somebody else to find out if your employees trust you. You know, if you just look at them and talk to them. And do you trust them, and do they trust you? It's an important factor that affects what people believe to be true about their business, and how engaged they are in the business, and whether or not they feel like they belong. Really just that basic. And then there's also a question in an audit that I always ask is, how long do you keep ineffective employees? So how long do you try to fix a situation with an ineffective or toxic employee? The answer to that question can tell you whether or not there's a lot of tension and distrust in the environment, because people don't like to work with people that are ineffective. It means other people are doing things to make up for that. And it's important for you to understand, as an employer, what a new employee is walking into in those situations. So knowing your process. And then remote management. If you're managing people remotely, then you've already learned this, that you have to manage by deliverables, not hours. So that process needs to be audited as well. And then understanding whether or not your employees know that they're valued, cared for, and appreciated, and whether or not you value, care for, and appreciate your employees is part of an audit of employee experience as well. And because keep in mind that whatever your employee experience is as it currently exists, that's what you're bringing somebody into. So is that going to be a welcoming experience for somebody or not so much? It's a good idea for you to have that information. And let's back up a little bit into the interview process. It doesn't matter how well you do the interview process, how successful you've been in the past, improve it. Look for ways to improve your interview process. Search for trending information. What are the experts say are true about what should be happening during the interview process? The most key trend, which has actually been a necessity forever, but has only become maybe in the last decade, but certainly in the last 18 to 24 months, has become a conversation. Interviews as conversations has become much more real for people on both sides of the table. When you're doing interviews, you should be asking open-ended questions, not yes/no questions, and it's a two-way street. So giving applicants plenty of time to assess you and your business is critical, and you have an opportunity to engage those questions from them. You don't have to wait till the end of an interview to say, oh, so do you have any questions for us? That's almost too late in the process, because if they've not gotten used to engaging in a conversation, they might kind of get flustered and say, oh no, I think we've covered everything. But that's never true. You can't cover everything in an interview. So ask questions and encourage questions back in an open-ended way. And the best way to do that is to really believe it's a conversation, not just question, a Q&A session. And then be transparent. Don't sugarcoat anything. If you're hiring somebody to spend all winter outside, then they need to know what that feels like. They need to know what the expectations are, and they need to know what you're doing to help the more difficult parts of a job be a little easier, or that they have some value, that they know what their contributions are as well. So don't sugarcoat anything. So we go to number 10. Make it easy for people to find you. And these are some ideas, but you're going to get these slides, so you don't have to take a lot of notes, and I'm not going to go through every little detail here, but have a way for people to learn about what you're hiring, the hiring jobs, even on your website, even if they can't apply there. Optimize your social media activity. Your next employee might be your customer right now. Know your brand and optimize it. Make sure that it's something people would recognize if they come in contact with it. If you know where people are and you have an opportunity to tell your story online somehow through videos, through your, maybe you've got a business page on Facebook or LinkedIn, how do people learn about you? Being aware of what that is and how it looks, and build avatars. Like I've said before about your ideal applicants, understand if you know enough about your ideal applicant, it will be just so much easier for you to get in front of them. And that's exactly the same advice I give people about your customers. Know so much about your customers that it's easy to find them. You want to do the same thing with your applicants. And be visible to them. So you have an opportunity in today's social media environment. You can do virtual open houses. You can do webinars and information things. You can introduce products and services. You can highlight employee stories or altruistic activities. You can do all this stuff using video, having a YouTube channel, or however you want to put that stuff out there. If you've got products to highlight, you might, Pinterest might be a thing for you. You might have Instagram, or even I know businesses that put stuff out there on TikTok. So you've got lots of different opportunities to virtually meet and greet people. Even if you're not coming in direct contact with you, you can always put call to actions. Call us, talk to us, stop by, whatever is true for your business. And you can do video tours, by the way, too, with the same kind of topics. Let them know who you are, and they're more likely to share. And when they do apply, they will already know something about you and your business. And you can also feed applicants links to some of these. So when somebody applies, you can link them to information about your business across social media, so they can then make their next choice. Do they, would they be invited for an interview? Send them some information, let them watch some videos before they come in for an interview. You want to be as prepared. You want your employee candidates to be as prepared for that interview as you would prepare yourself for that interview. And then more on visibility. I talked about video, so I want to go a little bit further into that. In the acquisition and staffing process, you can use videos. You can give employees questions via video and let them video their responses or write them in an email. You can explain your job descriptions and show job activities in videos as part of a webinar stuff that you can also point applicants to. You can actually transition your job applications into video or some kind of format that's not on paper. You can overview people, like you can have, if you've got an HR person in your business, or if you've got somebody else that's a hiring manager, or yourself, can do an overview of your staffing strategy. Just tell people, we're hiring, here's what we're hiring, here's the kind of people we're looking for. If you're interested, please click whatever and talk to us. So there's lots of ways you can use video for that, even job ads. I'm not seeing this as much as I thought I would by now, but sometime through the middle of last year, I started expecting to see job ads to show up in video form. I haven't seen as much of that, but I'm still predicting that it's going to be a thing. And then you can market to your prospects by letting your employees talk about the business. So you can do that in video form. So something to think about there. Tip number 13 is an important piece. Pay attention to diversity. You're looking for everything that will attract diversity to your business, because that's what strengthens businesses. So make sure that your hiring reflects the demographics of your talent pool, your community, and your customer base. Pay attention to diversity so you can use that. This is a strength, that when you're reflecting your talent pool, your customer base, and your community, that's a strength for your business, and you have a better opportunity to contribute to the success of the people who are working for you when you give them a diverse workforce. So 14, I told you I was going to talk about uncertainty. The reason I talk about this is because I work from a perspective of neuroscience. So I think about what's true, what's going on in our brains. And human brains don't have a capacity for, we don't have a hardwired capacity for uncertainty. We do have a hardwired capacity for change. We can deal with change. Our brains can deal with change. The fact that we hear all the time that, oh, change is so hard, that's not actually a thing. Change is easy. Everybody does it. Every day you wake up, something changed, right? Every minute, something is going on that's changed. We have the capacity neurologically to deal with change, and that means we have the capacity mentally and emotionally to deal with change. What we don't have the capacity for is uncertainty, and that's the thing that we call change when we talk about it. So you need to counter the uncertainty. So an applicant is applying for a job. If you haven't given them enough information from the outset, they're going to be a little uncertain. They're going to be a little concerned. Am I qualified enough? And is this the kind of work that I want to do? Will they pay me enough? What do I need to know to be the best possible applicant in an interview process? So that uncertainty is going to go across the board, and it's going to be on both sides. You're going to have uncertainty. Your applicants are going to have uncertainty. Your employees are going to have uncertainty about this new person that's going to join their team. So counter that by validating employee concerns, and that means asking for those concerns, and then making sure people realize that it's okay to have concerns. It's perfectly reasonable that they might have concerns, so let's talk about them. Employing open and frequent communication, which means more conversations. Be transparent about your business as much as you can. Be trusting, be trustworthy. That goes a long way to mitigating uncertainty in your business. And then model the behaviors you want to see. So if you want people to trust each other, model those behaviors. If you want people to be nice, model those behaviors. Whatever is important to you in your business, model the behaviors you want to see, even with your applicants and especially with your employees, because again, remember you're adding somebody to that culture. So there will be some degree of assimilation there. And I have for tip number 15 is the one that's actually probably the most important and maybe the biggest umbrella over everything else, is avoid assumptions. Assumptions are presumptive at best, and they can lead to insults from the perspective of other people. So do your best to not apply your thinking to other people's experiences. As human beings, we have a boatload of cognitive biases and logical fallacies that contribute to our making sense of the world. But the reality is when we're talking about adding somebody to your environment as an employee, the only thing that's going to make sense about that is by getting information, asking questions, creating conversations, getting to know that person and allowing them to get to know you. So making assumptions puts a big barrier in between that process. So don't assume you know or that you can know what your employees or your applicants are going to do, say, think, or feel in any situation. You can't think out of their head. So the only way to engage that is through conversation and asking questions. Create those conversations with open-ended questions. I've said it a number of times, it's worth repeating, because what you're really trying to do is co-create a shared experience that culminates in the employee experience and, most importantly, the success of your business and the success of the people that depend on your business. So let me just kind of summarize in final comments. I've alluded to this, but nothing is going to work every time for every business. You're going to see pieces of the advice that I've given today that makes sense to you, and other stuff that doesn't make sense to you, and other things that will pop up in your mind as you think about this that wasn't even included in the presentation, but it might be important to you. So the best strategy as you move forward with this is be flexible, be creative, and be open-minded. And keep reminding yourself to do those things when you find yourself making assumptions. You need to step back and say, wait a second, can't assume. What creative thought can I have in this moment that will help me move forward? So if you're ready for anything, then everything will become an opportunity for you. So you are looking to get what you need for your business when you're hiring new employees. You're looking to get what you need for your employees or for your business through your employees, and you're having the opportunity to give someone else a chance to get what they need in a job that they've been hoping for. So it's definitely a two-way street. Don't ever wait to start a staffing and hiring process. As soon as you realize you might need to hire somebody, start the process. Start thinking about what it's going to look like, what your strategies are. Do a little audit of your environment, do an audit of your processes, see what still works, check around the trends, talk to other business owners, What do you think is happening in the environment? Get prepared before you step off the curb, and then be patient and be persistent, and you'll get what you need. There's no silver bullet here. There's no magic wand. It's a process that takes time and effort. And the best you can do is create the conversations that are going to serve your environment. And again, the golden thread, everything that you're doing is contributing to the success of your business, and everybody in your business is contributing to the success of your business, including your new applicants. So I hope that this gives you information that is relevant and at least gets you thinking about what needs to be true going forward in today's pandemic world. I've got on this last slide, and again, we're going to send out the slides to everybody that attended, probably everybody that signed up. And this recording is going to be available to anybody that wants to look at it. I think Harriet said that, and Jack, you can confirm, I think this was going to go on the website or Facebook page. I'm not sure, but somewhere it'll be available. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. And you have my contact information here. If anyone has any questions or specific things that you want to ask me on a one-off, I'll be happy to spend some time with you and talk about that. And I put Jock's contact information on here too, just in case you want to bother Jock out in the country to see what's going on. And I don't know if anybody's if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat right now or just unmute and ask. We have a little less than 10 minutes to talk. So any questions?
Doreen, I think my big takeaway from this is you're kind of saying we need to do marketing not only for customers, but for employees.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with today's employees, what is the biggest motivator?
Well, that's an interesting question. I love that you asked that, because motivation is something that people do for themselves. Nobody can motivate someone else. What an employer can do is create an environment that engages motivation on people. And motivation just means someone wants to do something and they're willing to make an effort to do it. So what has to be true? So it really comes back to how happy are your employees? I talk about employee engagement a lot in my talks, and employee engagement, you could search that on Google, employee engagement, and you'll just get millions of responses. And everybody has a topic about employee engagement and what it means and how to make it happen. And it's just crazy big topic. And there are books and articles, but it really comes down to one thing. Employee engagement can be measured in how people feel walking through the door every day and how they feel leaving the business every day. So if you can engage people, if you tell people that I want you to be happy walking through the door every day, what has to happen to make that true? Being able to ask that question and create a conversation about that in your workplace is highly motivating, because what you're telling employees is they have some control over their own experience as an employee. And when you give them that, they automatically, something in their brain, they get a little chemical cocktail of dopamine and stuff that says, wow, this is cool. I've got this. And then that translates into, I want to make this a good place to work for me and everybody else. They don't have to think it consciously. It just happens. So that's the motivator, is find ways to treat people like they deserve to be treated, and they will reward you with their own version of motivation for themselves. Did that make sense, Jack?
I didn't like the answer, but yes, it made sense.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, it's nice. You could entice people, like you can buy them pizza every once in a while. You can engage a compensation strategy that includes base rate and bonuses, targeted bonuses for performance. You can give people new computers every 3 years. You can buy them a new chair when theirs starts to wobble. You can do a whole bunch of stuff to entice people's sense of belonging and sense of commitment to your business, which could translate into them feeling motivated to add more discretionary effort, maybe a greater intent to stay. So there's a lot of things that you can do to make them happier. You can simply talk to them realistically about how well they're doing and going beyond the, hey, that was a good job, but being able to say, here's what I saw that you did, and here's what it meant to me. And thank you so much, because this is what I see as the contribution going forward, whatever you want to say, but being specific about accolades, being honest and about when you need to correct people, being trustworthy and respectful. All of those things all contribute to that sense of the choice people make to be motivated.
Okay,
I hope that
makes sense.
clarifies things.
That does. Thank
Good.
you.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions did I totally just blow everybody out of the water? Like, this was not what I expected. I can hear that. I
No,
told you at the
Doreen,
beginning. Go ahead.
It was very helpful.
Oh,
Very
good.
helpful. I liked what you said about working remotely and measuring it on the deliverables rather than the hourly,
Mhm.
keeping track. I know that we recently lost an employee, and one of the reasons was because they had to track every hour rather than, if they were at work getting their work done. But when they were
Yeah.
at home, then they had to track those hours. And
Yeah.
that creates a lot of stress.
It's very difficult because you have the labor laws on one side that say you have to pay people for the hours they actually work, and overtime is also related to that. And when they're exempt, you don't have to worry about that. But when they're non-exempt, you have to pay overtime. And so people think they need to track hours. I think there needs to be a certain amount of trust in that. It used to be that non-exempt employees were discouraged from doing remote work, and even the labor laws specifically said that you can't have remote employees who are non-exempt. Well, that's gone out the window. That's changed. And that changed a decade ago, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But now it's become more in focus. But the reality is, as an employer, you know when work is getting done. And you can kind of assess that. So we need to we need to be sure that we have the right amount of work for the right amount of time. There's a theory that's been proven time and time again that work will take up as much time as you give it. So if you tell somebody, here's your job and you've got 8 hours to do it, they'll take 8 hours to do it.
Right.
And if they want to be more effective, then they'll take less hours. That's the concept of compensation. I've got some clients that use commission even for jobs that would normally be, they still have to worry about overtime because they'd normally be non-exempt. So one of these clients is a body shop. So they pay the body guys on commission. So the better they get at a job, it could take them less time, but they're getting paid for a certain amount of time. So these guys can bill like 60 hours in a week when they work 40. So, and I've done this commission thing in other like accounting firms and other types of jobs too. So it's time consuming to track, but when we've got remote people, how else are you going to track but by deliverables? So, and then have open, trusting conversations with people over time that asks them, do you have enough work to fill your time? If you start finding out that it doesn't take as long to do the work, then you could add more work, or you could reduce the hours. We've got clients that are basically taking hours down from 40 to 32 or 35 and not losing productivity at all, not changing salary either. So that's another way to engage people. Look, we're going to pay you the same. We're going to expect 35 hours, but we want a regular record of your deliverables and we want to make sure things are getting done. What does that look like? What can that look like for us? So if you can start asking that question, what can it look like for us for basically every topic, then you can really engage some interesting conversations. And we just got, wait, we got a chat. We got somebody. Okay, Jack's jumping on a call. Okay, so we're at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and end the call. You have my contact information. You're going to get a copy of these slides. Contact me if you have any further questions or want some clarifications on anything that I've talked about today. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your time, Doreen.
All right, thanks everybody.